And the end of our marathon practice match schedule down at GMHBA Stadium was Geelong and Richmond. And to finish us off, we've got Fish back. G'day, Fish.
G'day, mate. I'm back doing my third pracky match of the weekend.
Have you had enough footy yet?
I'm just about footied out. I need a couple of days break from watching it, but not a bad game today. Watching the stream, Richmond and Geelong, they played 6 quarters, but 4 quarters that would interest us and the fantasy followers out there.
All right, well, let's look at the players that are of interest for us. I think let's start with Dusty Martin because he had that horrifying injury last year, and we didn't know what he was going to be like this year. We've heard he's dropped some weight and all that, but all I was seeing was that he was a midfielder and basically a full-time midfielder.
He was, yeah. I don't know if he drifted forward at all. He played on the ball most of the time. I don't know what his percentage. He might have played 60-70% of game time, but ton of centre bounce attendances. Looked good. Heaps of clearances. Kicked the ball well. A couple of rusty turnovers, but I think if you're a Dusty Martin fan, you'd be pretty encouraged by that. He did more than enough to impress in the 4 quarters.
So was this sort of Dusty of old because he's been down a couple of years fantasy-wise. Could we see him coming back to that, 2017 form that it was?
Oh, that's a pretty high bar. But particularly if he plays on ball as much as he did, maybe that was just to get the run in his legs. But yeah, he was pretty good. He got plenty of footy, that's for sure. So, I don't know what he ended up with, but I'd be encouraged by that was a little more towards the peak Dusty than the version we may have seen in the last 12 months or so.
Were you impressed by Shay Bolton's game?
Oh, he was exceptional. The more the match went on, the better he got. He mixed his time mid-forward, kicked 3 goals in the end, I think, was involved in everything. I don't know how much ball he had in the 3rd and 4th quarters, but he seemed to have it on a string. So he is someone I would be looking at seriously in your team. He can do anything, that bloke.
Right, okay. He's one definitely to mark down for draft, and geez, he could be up the order there, but also could knock on the door of your top few forwards in Fantasy Classic as well. All right. Jaden Short, I saw the start of the game and he looked like he had it on a string early, and this time last year, it was in the Amy series, he scored 171 points. Is he just a preseason specialist, or is that sort of what we'll see? Because he's probably got a role that can get plenty of big scores.
He does. He probably drifted out of it a little bit as the match wore on today, so I don't know whether the minutes were being managed. I was watching the stream, so sometimes it's hard to gather how long guys are on the bench for, but he certainly sort of drifted out of it as the match went on, but he started on fire, and you're right, like he does have that role, similar to a guy, second, I'm sure, Tom Stewart. Like those guys just, I think their teammates look for them as out for a start, and if they're not bad with the old 1-2s, so Short looked in pretty good nick to start his pre-season.
Now, Hugo Ralphsmith might be a name that other people can remember from last year. He's got mid-forward status, 258k. So like Jaden Short there in the back line, that's where we found Ralphsmith. He pretty much, maybe slow to start, but that second quarter I saw him rack up a heap of touches. He
did. He got rolling, actually. I was really impressed with his game. Maybe, the guys with the long hair just stand out a bit more, but I thought he was really aggressive around the contest, got plenty of footy and plenty of hard-won footy, I would say. Maybe that's why he stood out to me. Like a lot of hard ball gets on the ground, like contested possessions. Looked right at home, to be honest. I think he played maybe 6 or 7 games, like a handful of games last year, but looked pretty at home at halfback. I'm not sure what Richmond's plans are exactly, but he would have impressed Damien Hardwick today for sure.
All right, let's have a look at some of the Cats then. Dangerfield's always someone that's always fantasy relevant. Doesn't have the forward status this year, but he's cheap. Could he be a consideration for us in the midfield?
Yeah, well, he played a bit like Dusty. Like he played a lot of midfield minutes today. Danger did go forward a little bit, but he was mainly used as a midfielder. Probably had his minutes managed as well. Not dissimilar to Dusty, actually. They were almost on a par today, I reckon. So I'd be keen to see how that split is in the Amy match against Gold Coast in a week or so's time. Maybe they're just sort of nursing him through the pre-season a bit. A few more minutes I'd like to see from him, and just to see how much he does drift forward. before I'd lock him in.
I guess this was it felt to me watching this game a bit of a go through the motions type thing for a few of the players. But one of them that probably wanted to be out there was Tom Stewart that we mentioned before, and he had that foot injury at the end of last year, didn't play in the finals, and he didn't look like he was missing a beat actually. So his pre-season must have been good enough to see him doing what he did, and it was the Tom Stewart that we all know that chops off, takes those marks, the ball's in his hand quite a bit, and we see plenty of kicks out of the back line from him.
Mate, we didn't see statistics for any of these games. I could almost guarantee he would have had the most fantasy points. He was everywhere. Intercept marks. He might have had a goal or two kicked on him, but that's irrelevant, isn't it?
Definitely for us as fantasy coaches, it means that he might have had more opportunity for kick-ins and that sort of thing as well.
That's it. So he had plenty of intercept marks, plenty of marks in general play, plenty of kicks. Like he looked. You nailed it. He has not missed a beat.
Yeah, and lastly, we don't like small forwards too much for fantasy, but Tyson Stingle made a pretty decent, had a pretty decent first game in the hoops. Yeah,
he really did. He kicked 4. He was involved in everything. He came up. He wasn't just a stay-at-home forward, which I probably liked. I don't know how it'll translate to fantasy. You'd obviously want to see a little bit more before you took the risk and went down that path, but he often roamed up to the wing, roamed up to half forward. He went looking for the footy, and if I was to guess, I think he would have ended up with 15 or 16 touches, and he kicked 4-2, and he gave a goal or 2 away as well. So, that was a pretty exciting start. Obviously, you'd want to see it a little bit more before you locked him in, though.
Yeah, consistency is the thing from a small forward sort of stuff for us in fantasy, but that's it. Well, Fish, go and have a rest, mate, because you have you covered the most games out of anyone there, and fantasy coaches really appreciate your time, and get ready to watch your Queensland guys over these next couple of weeks because there's plenty of relevant guys there.
Couple of wins for the Queensland teams. I just hope they keep that rolling when the real stuff starts.
Beauty. Fish, you are an absolute gun reporter for AFL.com.au, and we'll be chatting to you again in the pre-season.
Thanks, mate. Can't wait.